Nice. Hello, everyone, fantasy focused people. Hope all is well. Live video starting, it says over here on the left. If there's any issues, I believe I am live. It said live before. So, of course, I get the old notice close your internet, check your internet connection. You know, it's good. Oh no, where'd I go? Stupid Facebook thing. Whatever. I hope everybody's doing good. If you can, somebody sees me, comment. That's cool. I know a lot of people watch these videos a little bit later throughout the weekend, which is always good to catch up. There's so many. Hey, Mike. There we go. Very cool. Good to see that you're there. Thank you for letting me know that people could actually hear me and see me. So good, fun stuff. But what was I saying? I was saying something. Yes, that's right. There's so many great authors here. So if you don't catch everybody live, these videos will be up all weekend. Definitely still run the gamut. Some really good storytelling going on. Some really great authors. And it's good to be a part of the community, I will say that. Now, my name is PD Oliva, and I write sci-fi, fantasy / novels. I also write horror novels. So let's see. What do we got? We got The Rose. All right, that's my first sci-fi fantasy novel. Kind of, they say it's borderline horror. They do say that. Some people do say, think that it's a little bit scary. You know, it's definitely gory. It's definitely bloody. There's definitely a lot of stuff like that. I guess it could be scary too. So, Family and Vampire Scary. So that's volume 1 that I just showed you. This is volume 2. That's my, where are we going? Right there. Get up close. That's my man. It's my main villain, Sanos. So we're gonna get to him in here. He's also in volume 1. I also write horror novels as well, more psychological than like Splatterfest that seems to be out there in droves right now. Which there's nothing wrong with Splatterfest. I enjoy a good Splatterfest novel, but I do like writing more on the psychological component, and that is my baby right there. Where are you? Woo, move this hand. There we go. Gollum, the devil is in the details. Yeah, so I kind of switch it up. I definitely do. You know, I go from horror, then I go to sci-fi. Right now I'm editing my next horror novel called Jiggly Spot and the Zero Intellect, and I do love the title. And Jiggly Spot and the Zero Intellect is something that I call my COVID quarantine, because I wrote it during 2020. COVID took like 7 months to write, and my COVID quarantine satirical cosmic grindhouse horror fantasy thriller novel. So a lot of stuff in there, and that's just a lot of good fun. But and then I'm writing at the moment volume 3 for The Rose. So switch back and forth, and it's fantastic. It does drive me a little bit batty every once in a while. It's like, where am I going, this way or that way? Am I going sci-fi? Am I going horror? Am I going? But the good thing is they're alien vampires, so they're ripping people's hearts out too. And no hearts getting pulled out today in our reading, but okay. So let me tell you a little bit about The Rose. Okay, so The Rose is a sci-fi fantasy thriller novel. You got through that. It takes place after World War III, and long and short of it, I'll give it to you. It's about a species of alien vampires who live in Hollow Earth, who have conspired with alien greys and elite humans to subjugate the human population. And our story takes place immediately after World War III. World War III treaty has been signed. We're on American soil. That's where volume 1 takes place, all right? And so what we have is rebel freedom fighter, a guy named Phil is trying to, or rescues a girl named Sandy from, at that point, after World War III, they were all in like safety camps. He rescues her. It's a botched attempt. She gets taken to an underground compound where she discovers there's aliens and alien vampires. And what the aliens are doing with the humans is they're subjugating the human population by forcing them to take a pharmaceutical that destroys gray matter in the brain, pretty much rendering human beings kind of like zombies, pretty much. Not zombies, but like real zombies. However, what the chemistry in the pills takes is an opiate base. All right, so and it's a new pill, and what happens is the first human takes this pill, and the vampire Sanos, who is in this underground medical compound, goes and he's the first one to try what they call new blood, and he gets addicted to this new blood. And once he gets addicted, as soon as he takes this first pill, all of a sudden this voice starts coming in his head, and he calls it the voice from the pills. And there's a lot of that in this volume 2 as well that really expands on that happened in volume 1. So volume 1 ends in a certain way, and what we have is this guy Phil, rebel freedom fighter. All right, so he is trying to track down Sanos. All right, so and that's where he finally catches up to Sanos in volume 2. It's in the beginning of the book. All right, so we don't there's no spoilers. It's okay, they're main characters, so nothing like that is happening. I need to make sure I cover all bases in my head before we get into the reading. So he's caught up to Sanos. They are in, it's called CR-115. It is a abandoned base in Colorado. It used to be used by humans, but it's been abandoned. Obviously, World War III has happened. They do both, Mike. They do both. They suck blood and they enforce spiritual slavery. Put it that way. So the rose itself. So the title of the book is based on an alchemy meditation practice that is used to ward off energy vampires in quote unquote real life, ward off energy vampires in real life, and provide protection from dark spirits that are out there. So that's the name of the alchemy meditation. I took it, put it into the book as the superpower, and expanded on it, where within the sphere of the rose, anybody's ethereal sphere, they're able to expand that sphere and manipulate chemistry on any object that's around them, suspend gravity, move objects with their mind. So that's the rose, why it's called the rose. Let me see. Also, it's an ancient alien weaponry, right? So in which point, what it is, it's called the blades, right? So picture, it's based on a karate martial arts practice, Kabuto Tonfa, all right, which is like martial arts with weapons. However, best way to describe this is think of a policeman's baton, right? So you got the handles in the palm and it goes down across the arm bone there. So instead of wood, they're made of alien steel. So when they're fighting, when they'll mention blade against blade, that's what you're doing. Boom, boom, boom. Let's see, what else do I got? Okay, so as I'm reading, we're going to be meeting Sanos and Phil, and then we're also got in between other chapters, in which case in volume 1, there was a American soldier who has a really big part in volume 1. In the beginning of volume 1, he does not know aliens exist, and then he does find out, and he becomes part of the rebel freedom fighters with Phil. So he's in this as well, and what's happened is he is kind of traveling across America on a vessel, is what it's called, and he is with another soldier named Corporal Grimes, and a genetically modified human child who's like a human vampire hybrid. We're exploring that in volume 2 as well in the future. Another girl who was part of the Rebel Alliance, grew up in the Rebel Alliance, and then the giant Perseus, who was also, and these were all introduced in volume 1 too. Then the giant Perseus. All right, so he was in volume 1 too. So they're flying across America trying to get to another rebel base in New Mexico. So we're going to be flipping back and forth between those two. And anything else? For anybody watching this video over the next, let's say over the weekend, right? So there have been more than a few influences in my life that have made it into the rose, that the rose is spawned from. So a big major influence is Star Wars. And in this fight scene with Phil and Sanos, there are a couple of lines that are used, so that are from a specific Star Wars episode and scene. So if you want to be as bold as I'm reading, and if you're able to catch up, this line, any true Star Wars fan, once they hear this line, is definitely going to say, I know where that's from. All right, that's a fact. So if you hear it, put down exactly your comment below and say what that movie is, which Star Wars movie that is. And if the first person to answer correct, I will send you a hardcover of volume 1. And if you haven't read, or volume 2, I mean, send you a hardcover. And if you haven't read volume 1, you want that as a hardcover instead, we could do that. Or if you just want to go with a good old psychological horror like Gollum, I could send you that too. So it'll kind of be like your pick. All right. So, and there we go. Boom, boom, boom. All right. So glasses do come off as I'm reading. I need glasses to see far away, but my reading is fine. I don't know. I've definitely been backwards all my life, and that just proves it, right? Most people who hit 40, they need reading glasses. No, me, it's just far away. The reading eyes, good to go. So consider that a gift. All right, here we go. So this is page 22, and we are in part 1, chapter 7. All right, remember, we're meeting Phil, who's just been following Sonos. Here we go. Phil stepped into the vast open area that is CR 115. Another abandoned post, thought Phil. Another relic of a world now gone. To Phil, walking in places like CR 115 was like a 20th century archaeologist discovering the pyramids, a world from long before his time. He saw death where once life had thrived, felt cowardice in the hearts of the people who once walked these halls, and deception hovered above the landscape like a stain from a vile time that would take millenniums to dissipate. He could sense it, smell it, in the room, that dark energy consuming the earth, descending upon its inhabitants with an iron fist, constricting the atoms surrounding him, thickening the air he breathed. Use the rose to scatter the atoms, Robin's instruction. Robin Winter is Phil's mentor. He is the leader of the Rebel Alliance, Rebel Freedom Fighters. Use the rose to scatter the atoms, Robin's instruction. What was once heavy, closely packed atoms can then breathe like vapor from your core and shine the way through the darkness. Phil closed his eyes, breathed deeply, manipulating his ethereal sphere, the atoms around him sparkling gold and white. Now expand the sphere with layers of light energy, Robin's voice in Phil's head. Phil remembered how Robin told him he could capture solar systems within his vibrational frequency by mastering his expansion of the rose. Be pure at heart. You are more than crude matter. You are stardust, and within the stars you are free. Phil opened his eyes to see how light now illuminated CR 115, sparkling white and gold. Useful trick, said Sonos. He was on the second floor platform, standing close to the wall in the foyer outside the second floor entrance. He looked over the newly lit room. But I prefer the darkness. Most monsters do, said Phil, as he turned towards Sonos, staring, waiting. Sonos clucked his tongue, stepped slowly towards the staircase, dragging his nail across the wood banister, splintering a string of wood, his head bowed in thought. Do you believe the light will save you? Sonos ceased walking and glared at Phil, as if the light is some mystical being expected to bring peace to a dying breed. I choose to live in the light. I fight for love and for what is right. You fight for destruction and chaos, for self-preservation with the purpose of making others suffer. Sonos cocked his head to the right, a laugh in his throat. So true, and yet, dear phantom, it is still fighting, and fighting will always bring death. He laughed out loud. Perhaps we are both on the wrong side. We both give purpose to violence. Don't deny your nature. Sonos' head moving back and forth. You love the battle, the fight, the carnage. After all, you are only human, even if you are the phantom. Phantom? Of course. Do you really believe that only humans have their devils and monsters? To us, you are the monster, a ghost set on destroying our way of life, whirling into our plans with destruction and murder, and then gone, vanished without a trace. A phantom in our lore. Glad I can make an impression. Sonos jumped from the second floor and landed on his feet 50 yards from Phil, and Phil stepped forward, turning so that he was eye to eye with Sonos. This is our planet, Sonos. You're just an uninvited guest, an alien parasite infecting our world. And you, the exterminator. Dear phantom, what makes you think this planet belongs to you? You're the father of lies, Sonos. Enough of the chit-chat. Phil stretched his arms in front of him. He pressed the handles in his palms, extending the blades down his arms as a helmet formed around his head, smooth and silver. Sano stared inquisitively at Phil's new armor. "Let's dance, vampire." Sano shook his head. "See? I was right." His eyes beamed with rage, his voice a sinister hush. "You are a monster." Nice. End chapter. All right. Chapter 8. I need Lachlan, though. I need Lachlan. All right. Back to work. All right, chapter 8. Cam was lying on a bed in a tiny room on the cruiser, alone, thinking over the events he'd witnessed. He could hear the children, Cameron and Anison, playing. Odd as it was, the fact he was flying across America on a vessel he never knew could exist seemed perfectly rational. The war behind him, the war he'd fought for so long, a pawn in an elite game of chess, with the winner claiming the planet he so loved, with children, one he was sure was a genetically altered vampire or monster or whatever the young Cameron would become. The girl, Anison, who came with some strange antenna on the back of her skull, and a giant Perseus, who had to remain hunched over to fit inside the vessel. All seemed completely rational in his new reality. But there was more. He couldn't help the sensation boiling in his gut that told him, all these people, and yet I feel alone, detached from them, from all of them, from myself. Grimes was flying. He had jumped at the chance to fly the cruiser like a child who had been given a surprise toy. And what a difference a day can make, thought Cam. Aliens do exist, vampires too. For shit's sake, we are not alone in the universe, not by far. But how long have they been here, toying with us, infecting our planet, turning us against each other? The vessel jumped up, then back down in a quick thrust, then settled back to its smooth ride. Get it together, Grimes, thought Cam. Quit playing around. And his thoughts kept returning to Robin Winter. He could see Robin as clear as his hand in front of his face. Those eyes, he thought. Why are his eyes like that? All right, so Robin Winter's eyes are like all white, and they like glimmer and stuff like that. So that's why he's asking. But it wasn't just his eyes. Cam saw Robin's mouth move, his words too soft for Cam to discern. Cam couldn't shake the notion that he somehow knew Robin Winter. There was a familiar comfort Cam experienced in Winter's presence. Safe, Cam thought, like an old blanket that provides comfort on multiple levels. The vessel turned on a dime and Cam had to brace himself to not roll over. "Friggin' Grimes," Cam hollered, jumping off the bed, his hand on the wall to brace himself when he heard the speaker on the wall crackle to life. Grimes' voice shouted through the speaker, "Cam, get up here now!" The vessel jolted to the left and Cam shifted his hands to keep himself from falling. A second later, he pressed his hand to the panel next to the door. "We've got company," said Grimes through the speaker as the door opened. Cam rushed out of the room, down the hall. Doors on his left and right, the hall opened to a large room where Cameron and Addison sat strapped in their seats. The giant sat on the floor. "What is it?" asked Cameron. He looked pale, sick even. "I'm sure it's nothing. Stay here and stay strapped in." Cam looked them over, fixed his eyes on the giant. "Keep them strapped in," he said. The giant answered with a quick nod before Cam rushed through the room to the cockpit. Grimes was flying the vessel. Cameron saw the screen before he heard Grimes speak. The image was clear, a UFO behind them, a replica of the starship Phil had flown from the compound. Its movement on the screen was erratic. 1 second it was behind them, the next hundreds of yards ahead on their right. "Sit down," Grimes hollered. "What is it?" Cam said as he strapped into the seat beside Grimes. "I think it's been following us," said Grimes. "It showed up not long after we left Atlanta." "Is it hostile?" "Now, how am I supposed to know that?" All right, said Cam. "Let's not get our panties in a bunch." Cam craned his neck, searching the sky for a sign where the UFO had gone. Where did it go? A pause. The UFO was in front of them. They were barreling directly towards it. Grimes screamed "shit" and dipped the vessel down, banking a hard right. "I'd say definitely hostile." The vessel banked left, and Cam saw the UFO outside his window further on the left. How the hell do they move so fast? "I don't know, but it's messing with me and I don't like it." "Following us," said Cam. "Trying to find out where we're going?" Grimes propelled forward, the vessel lurching into a fast brake straight away. Cam braced himself, his hands on the wall to his left hand squeezing his armrest as the vessel turned left, then settled straight away. Well, maybe we should get peace, said Cam. Grimes shot Cam a wild stare. This is not the time for humor. Oh, Corporal, it's always a time for humor. Grimes banked another hard left, and Cam's stomach lurched. Well, at least they're not engaging, Cam breathed deeply, thinking. And then he heard the shot before he saw a green beam race past their cruiser. Shit, said Cam. You were saying, Lieutenant? End of chapter. All right, so getting into a little bit of trouble here. It's my last water break, it's a promise. Bam. Okay. All right, chapter 9. Sanos caught Phil's fist. Phil pulled and tugged, but struggled to free his hand from Sanos' grip as Sanos laughed when Phil used Sanos' strength as leverage to propel himself up. His boot thrashed against Sanos' chin as Phil flipped over onto his feet, and Sanos stumbled back with a grunt, crashing into a desk that crumbled under his weight. Sanos' mouth filled with blood. He shattered a fang, he was sure of it. Phil standing, ready for Sanos to launch another attack. His helmet's shield around the eyes gleamed a glowing white. Sanos rubbed his chin, grimacing. He spit a wad of blood to the floor, and yet his phantom stood unmoving, waiting, unfazed. The phantom's moves were smooth, cold, calculated, and yet he was still a simple human. Or perhaps there was more to Phil than Sanos had thought. Sanos rubbed his jaw, his breathing heavy. He felt weak without the pills, without new blood. His body labored when he pushed himself up, and the phantom waited for his next move. He looked up and over the room, still filled with light from the phantom's rose. His eyes then settled on the phantom. There is more to him than expected. Who is this phantom? Sanos thought. Who is he indeed? And now the voice from the pills. He is the key, Sanos. Dismantle him. Take him, Sanos. Take him! Sanos tightened his fist and rushed at the phantom when Phil met his pace, lifting off the ground. 2 kicks to Sanos' torso and head, and Sanos felt himself fall back, slammed against the ground with a heavy thud. Sanos jumped up quickly as Phil engaged, crossing blade against blade. Phil swiped Sanos' leg from beneath him. Another fall. His body ached, his skull beating with a heavy, painful thud. Come on, Sanos, muttered Phil. I thought you put up more of a fight. You're not going to make this too easy, are you? Sanos gathered himself to his feet. He felt blood cascade across his forehead. He wiped it clear from his eyes. Phil raised his arm. Blood stained his blade. Sanos' blood. I'll take you piece by piece if I have to. Sanos glared at the phantom, thinking, my strategy is wrong with this one. There's too much light. Sanos stepped forward, slapped his hands together, bathing CR-115 in darkness. Phil's light was now gone, and Sanos rushed at Phil, slammed into him, and watched as Phil was tossed back into the wall, to the staircase that led to the second floor. He landed with a thud, his face pinched in a painful wince. Sanos standing tall, growling, clenching his fist. 2 can play the rose game, dear phantom. Phil catapulted towards Sanos, rushing at him with his blades. Blade against blade they fought, Phil's movement lightning fast and packing a thrust so powerful, Sanos found it difficult to counter. Sanos backed up from Phil's relentless fury, and Phil crouched down, sliced his blades across Sanos' thigh. 1 cut, 2, 3, and followed with an uppercut to Sanos' jaw. Phil kept coming as Sanos reeled back. Phil raced towards him, his boot foot barreled towards Sanos. But Sanos caught his boot foot in the crook of his left arm, swiped his right blade across Phil's helmet. The metal crushed and cracked from the force of his blow. Phil's head snapped to the left, but Phil followed with his free leg, a kick to Sanos' already bloodied head. Sanos lost his hold on the leg. Phil's leg, like a windmill, leg over leg, delivered 2 kicks to Sanos that dropped him to the ground on his back, sliding away from where Phil was. And Phil stood, eyes on Sanos as his damaged helmet detracted. Sanos wiped blood from his lips, glaring at his phantom. He shook his head with a growl in the back of his throat, then pushed himself to his feet. His eyes narrowed as he looked at his phantom. There's my phantom, said Sanos. He could feel his blood seeping down his leg. What else have you got up that sleeve of yours? Phil was bobbing on his feet. You'll find I'm full of surprises. And he rushed at Sanos, but Sanos was quick. He slapped his hands together, turning the air between him and Phil into tightly packed atoms, with the weight of concrete that wrapped around Phil with an iron grip. Sanos thrust his arm to the left, and Phil went crashing to the wall, his back arched, his neck thrashed. "Come on," Sanos hollered as Phil dropped to his knees. Phil's jaw clenched, his teeth grinding, staring at Sanos. "Dear Phantom," Sanos chuckled beneath his breath. "Time for round 2. Oh, end chapter. Chapter 10. Cam jumped up from his seat. "Where the hell are you going?" Grimes banked left. The UFO appeared in front of them. "Shit," Grimes said, turned on a dime to the right as Cam braced himself. "Probably a good idea to shoot back, don't you think?" said Cam. Grimes eyed him. "About time, Lieutenant." Cam raced down the hall. According to Silas, one of Robin Winter's lackeys, the cruiser was equipped with a battle pod beneath the vessel. He stumbled but caught himself as the ship continued its winding, jutting, cutting movement. He opened the hatch in the floor and climbed into the seat in the pod, a clear sphere, controls across the thin desk surrounding the seat. Outside the vessel, attached to the pod, was a gun, a weapon unlike any Cam had ever seen. He strapped in quickly, took hold of the trigger and handles, set his feet on the pedals beneath him and looked down. The pedals told their purpose. The right pedal swiveled left and right, the left pedal up and down. He saw another green blast coming straight for him as the vessel swerved hard left. He saw a metal halo beside the pod's controls with the word headset engraved on it. Cam fit the halo over his head. He could now hear Grimes in the cockpit when he saw the UFO barreling towards him. "Shit," said Cam. He squeezed his trigger, and 2 bolts of green lasers shot from his weapon, but the UFO disappeared, the green blast racing through open air. "Holy shit, we got green shit too," said Cam. "What?" Grimes hollered. "Where the hell are you?" "Gunroom, Corporal. Keep eyes on them. The flying's erratic. We need to catch them spot on." A second later, Grimes screamed, 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Cam swerved, shooting beams of green across the sky. One of them grazed the UFO before the starship disappeared. "Ha-ha," Cam uttered. "Below us, below, directly below," Grimes called. Cam slammed the pedal and the gunner pod turned fast. The UFO was there. Cam shot another 4 times, but the UFO vanished before his lasers had a moment to reach its target. He saw a flash in the corner of his eye, turned on a dime. Another 4 shots. The UFO was gone. "Fuck," Cam screamed. Sorry for cursing. Sorry. Then, beneath his breath, how the hell do they do that? When you're, I love it. Like in this book, in volume 2, they, I have a description for how those move so fast. It's like it's in there, and it's pretty. In my opinion, it's pretty badass. Other people have read it, told me that they loved it too. It's pretty badass. So definitely cool. I'm not going to tell you what it is though. So all right, let's go to chapter 11. Phil's adrenaline-fueled blood raced through his veins, his head becoming weary. The pill's effects had begun, and soon, Phil knew, those effects would arrive in full force. Boom. That's what I forgot to mention. See that? Okay, so before Phil gets to CR115, he takes a pill, all right? He takes a red pill, all right? And that pill is going to, I don't even have to say what it is because it's not 100% intricate to this or pertaining to this, but it's just going to do something to his body that'll help him get into what's called Drock City, which is the alien vampire city in Hollow Earth. All right, so here we go. Phil knew those effects would arrive in full force. Vital signs were dwindling, and he felt his veins constrict, restricting access to his precious lifeblood. He could hear his heart ache, pounding in his chest with a heavy hammering thud like a blind man unnerved by an unknown cause. But he must continue to fight, Phil told himself. After all, he couldn't just troll into Drock City and expect a warm welcome while they handed over Sandy effortlessly. No, he needed to get into the city, move around unnoticed. What better way to accomplish this task than for them to think he was already dead? He thought it ironic how Sanos referred to him as the Phantom, for it was a phantom they would receive. And Sanos was his ticket inside. Sanos waited, arms stretched, and Phil still crouched against the wall. Sanos was using the rose now, manipulating the atoms to his advantage. Phil would need to counter his strike, but Phil's mastery of the rose was still out of his reach. He needed to reach down, let the magic flow from his veins. Had to. There was no other choice. Sanos must believe he won through whatever means he needs to secure victory, and that meant believing his victory was difficult. Yes, Phil was taking a chance with his strategy, but what strategy did not play under the thumb of chance and risk? See through the moment to the future. Make the future your present, and it will become as you see it. Robin's voice an echo in his mind. And Phil could see himself arriving in Atlanta with Sandy in tow as he manipulated the atoms in his sphere. Tiny bulbs of light ignited inside those atoms, charging, circulating into a loud sonic boom that raced towards Sanos and thrust him across the room. Phil ran behind his light as Sanos crashed against the wall with a groan. Phil on top of him, lashed out with his blades, but Sanos was quick. He caught Phil's blade with his own, and his boot barreled into Phil's torso. Pain swelled in Phil's gut, and he raced to the back of his skull. Phil hunched over, the pain in his abdomen excruciating and unnerving. Sanos on top of him. Phil had no time to think. Blade against blade they fought. Sanos on the prowl. Phil on the retreat, backing up as they fought. Sanos expanded his ether. The desk beside them turned to sand, then the sand to daggers aimed at Phil's head, spear towards him on command from Sanos. Phil welcomed them into his ether, turning those sharp spears into bursts of light. His blades met Sanos's as he manipulated those atoms into thickly packed ice that wrapped around Sanos's feet to his shoulders, encasing him in a block of ice. Without conscious thought, it came from beneath. Instinctively, Phil thought. Sanos struggled within its icy grasp as he looked at Phil. Phil's mouth agape. I did that, he thought, looking at the ice encasement, bottom to top. A smile graced his lips when he locked eyes with Sanos, and Phil shrugged. Sanos dissipated the ice with a force that exploded into Phil. He felt himself reeling back, slamming into the ground and sliding. But Phil jumped up quickly, steadied himself on his feet, a fighting stance on guard. Sanos watched, shook his head and snarled, and Phil smiled. Arrogant human, grumbled Sanos. What's wrong, Sanos? Having some trouble? If it wasn't for Kor, I would have killed you already. But now I know, Phantom, your death is required. Death, repeated Phil. What an extraordinary adventure. He tapped his middle fingers into his palm and his jetpack propelled him towards Sanos. Fists first. Sanos' eyes wide, unbelieving what his eyes revealed. A flying phantom barreling towards him too fast for Sanos to react when those fists slammed into Sanos, reeling him back as he crashed into desks, chairs, and computers, all crushed under his weight. As Phil stood tall, erect, Sanos looked at the surrounding chaos, and his eyes found Phil. What do you say, Sanos? Phil's lips curled into a grin. Ready for round 3? Oh, end chapter. Nice. Sorry, I lied. I need more water. Don't eat salty food before a live reading. Mental check. Note to self. All right, chapter 12. Back to Cam. Where the hell did it go? Cam hovered inside the pod, listening to the crackling from the headset, waiting, his breathing shallow. The pod hummed when it moved into position. Cam's feet now had a mind all their own. The cruiser propelled forward. Maybe it's gone, said Grimes through the headset. Got what it wanted, went back to wherever the hell it came from. Cam listened. Like a scavenger, said Grimes, gathering information to bring back to the flock. I don't think so, uttered Cam, barely audible, his gaze fixed on a spot some 100 yards away. He cocked his head, staring, noticing how the air around that spot swirled, and Cam felt his chest constrict as the UFO propelled out of the void. There it is, 7 o'clock. Cam shot 4 times, 2 shots hit on impact. The UFO faltered, spiraling, turning down. 3 more shots as the UFO banked right and vanished. Cam swerved his pod around. The UFO was there, whistling 4 shots at the cruiser. Gone again, and Cam heard the explosion before black smoke billowed from the cruiser. Grimes' voice loud in Cam's ear, we're hit, we're hit. The cruiser banked down and to the left. Smoke plumed from the cruiser with relentless fury. We're going down, Lieutenant. Grimes again. Cam could hear his grunting as the ship leveled in the air. That same commingling circle in the air in front of Cam. Cam's eyes on it. He started shooting immediately, and the UFO spiraled out of thin air. Cam shots, direct hits, 4 in a row, ripping explosions across the UFO. The UFO burned on its way down to crash into the earth. Cam watched as an explosion erupted from the UFO, and a burst of fire leapt into the sky. Cam hollered, UFO down, Corporal. He watched as the UFO slammed through the desert, fire jutting from its bows, then heard the screeching, humming, burning of his vessel. We're going down, said Grimes. Brace yourself. Black smoke wrapped around Cam's pod like a dark nightmare. He could see nothing beyond the pod. This is when Cam remembered he was at the bottom of the vessel. He'll be crushed on impact. Quickly, he unlashed himself. He got out. Goes up. All right. It's Cam. All right. So, end chapter. Final chapter I'm going to be reading for you here. And I think, yeah, not bad. 6:06. So we're doing good. Final chapter, concluding chapter. And then I will bid you adieu. All right. Chapter 13. Sanos gripped Phil by the throat and slammed him into the ground. Phil's foot kicked the back of his head, but his grip around Phil's throat held. Sanos shook his head, warding off the pain from Phil's kick. Phil wriggled in his grasp across the floor. Grunting, Sanos dragged Phil to his feet, gripped his head in both hands, and tossed Phil into desks and chairs. Sanos expanded his ether, barreling thickly packed atoms towards him, turning the desks and chairs into metal ropes that wrapped around Phil and squeezed. But Phil used his blades, cutting those metal ropes into quarters, which turned to sand at his feet. Sanos rushed at him, his pace inhumanly fast, slamming into Phil. Sanos continued his advance. He was on top of Phil, now pressed between himself and the wall. Sanos' hands on Phil's throat, squeezing. Phil dug his fingernails into Sanos' hands. Phil's blades' claws jutted from his fingers and tore through Sanos' hands as a loud grunt escaped Sanos' throat. Sorry, I forgot to mention last night. So the blades are here, and the blades also have kind of like a glove, right? So, and it comes out with claws, like. All right, so that's what he just used. All right, got it? All right, I'll read it again. Sanos' hands on Phil's throat, squeezing. Phil dug his fingernails into Sanos' hands. Phil's blades' claws jutted from his fingers and tore through Sanos' hands as a loud grunt escaped Sanos' throat. Phil pulled Sanos' hands from his throat, the pain excruciating for Sanos as he dropped to his knees. Phil hovered over him, staring, apparently enjoying the pain he was causing when Phil's boot crushed into his face, dropping Sanos back where his head rattled against the floor. Phil used his jetpack to lift off the ground as if he were on a spring, floating behind Sanos back down to the floor. Sanos held his trembling, curled claws, blood jutting from the wounds. He had him, Sanos thought. He had the phantom in his talons, squeezing the life from his lungs. How does he do it, thought Sanos. How does he know with such miraculous instinct what to do? As if he can see his next move before it happens. And yet, he is only human, bound by human thought, a slave to human programming. How have the laws impeded upon his people not touched him? When he was in Sanos' grip, his eyes revealed no cause for concern, nor fear, as if he had Sanos right where he wanted him. Phil, this human, represented a flaw in vampire thinking and belief. Sanos was sure of it. His people were never debriefed about humans with Phil's skill, nor his wit, or his evolution. Sanos gathered himself to his feet, clutching his shaking, bleeding hands against his abdomen. The phantom waited, watching, poised and ready. The thought stuck. Sanos saw it clearly. The Draconians' reasoning for destroying the human race. Should they be allowed to evolve with the phantom's abilities, they would reign supreme. Phil bent his head, watching the heavy, breathing Sanos. Why does he not advance? Every inch of his body throbbed with immense pain. His head bled into his eyes, his fang broken. His leg sliced 3 times and was still bleeding. And his claws, his hands, punctured by phantom claws. And still the phantom remained unscathed, other than a host of bruises. If it was fate for him to die at the hand of the phantom, then so be it. Sanos stood tall, arching his back as Phil began that bobbing motion, readying himself for the coming threat. Now the voice from the pills. You must take him, Sanos. He is the key to our future. Sanos shook his head and attempted to ward off the voice. He snarled and spit blood to the floor, his eyes never leaving Phil, cradling his torn talons. Ready to give up, Sanos? Tell me where Sandy is and I'll let you leave here alive. I'd rather die. and he rushed at Phil, who flew quickly over him, now behind him, his arms wrapped around Sinos' neck, wrapped around his throat. Sinos thrust the back of his head against Phil's face, breaking Phil's nose and releasing his arms from Sinos' throat. Sinos spun around with a punch that carried the strength of an atom bomb. Phil reeled back, and Sinos was on him with his blades, caught by Phil's blade. Crossing blade against blade, Sinos saw how the blood jutted from Phil's nose across his lips. His eyes welled with tears as he stretched his leg up high, his body swerving, and Sinos found himself in the crook of Phil's knee. His throat gagged, felt his head and neck twist, and his skull rapped against the floor when Sinos manipulated the surrounding atoms, sending shards of broken desk and metal that slammed into Phil. Sinos jumped up, grabbed Phil's body, and tossed him into the wall. Phil's eyes rolled to the back of his skull as Sinos slammed his forehead into Phil's eyes. Phil reeled back and fell to his knees. Sinos stomped over to him, took hold of a talon full of bloodied hair, and yanked back. A painful wincing grunt escaped across Phil's lips. Phil's neck exposed. Sinos snapped his teeth around his neck, drank down a gulp of his blood, and yanked his head back. Just a bite, a little taste of phantom blood. The blood was exquisite on his tongue. His hand squeezed Phil's head and slammed his skull through the wall. Phil's feet shuddered up his legs before falling limp, his body half in and half out of the wall. And Sinos raged with a victorious roar that filled the vast void. And then the pain came full force, like a tidal wave slammed into his veins. All he felt was pain as he looked at his phantom and those limp, unmoving legs. He craned his neck to see Phil inside the wall. Phil's eyes were closed, his neck lined with puncture marks where Sinos had bitten him, the skin beneath his eyes moist, where tears had fallen, now turning black and blue above a crushed, bloodied nose. No breathing, no chest rising, and the blood had ceased jutting from his wounds. Sinos furrowed his brow, inquisitive as he reached his hand to Phil's neck. No pulse. His phantom was dead. End chapter. There we go. Little cliffhanger for you. What happens is nothing more than some weird freaking shit. It's good, and it's a lot of fun too. That is volume 2 of The Rose. That's meeting Sinos, Phil, two main characters. We're going to haven't met Sandy, although if you read it, you know who Sandy is. She's in volume 1 and main character in volume 2 as well. And then Cam, who is, he's not, volume 1, he was not main character, so, but his role is definitely, he's kind of like the glue, a little bit of humor in there, and he's just your down to earth type of hero. So let's get out there and do what we got to do to win. So awesome. Okay, so I'll tell you a little bit about. I hope the quote's in there. So we'll listen to the video again, listen to the reading again, and if you can figure out what Star Wars movie that quote is from or is in the book, that's referenced in the book, go ahead and have at it. Just put your comment down there, and I will get you a hardcover. So it's pretty cool. You definitely probably pick the sci-fi or movie or book reference while reading the Rose series. That's a fact. So, and all right. So what about me? You can find me pdaleva.com, pdalleva.com. Also have a Facebook reader group myself, and there's live author readings. I do them, other authors do them. There are takeovers, Q&A, stuff like that, and a book club. So I have a book coming out, and kind of get together and read that puppy too. So that's always fun. It's called PD Aleva's Alternative Fiction Reader Group and Book Club. It's a long one. Just type in PD Aleva Book Club. You'll get there quick. And let's see, boom, boom. I'm also on Instagram. That's right. So I have a giveaway going on for Volume 1 right now. Volume 1 on Instagram, on my Instagram account. Just go to Instagram, type in PD Aleva Author. I'm definitely going to pop up. I think somebody created a fake account, and it's Author PD Aleva Author. And you will see, just go to the profile, and it's a giveaway. You can't miss it. You'll see, I just sent a post about this live reading, so that'll be the first post, and the giveaway is the second post. So for the Rose Volume 1, ebooks, paperbacks, and hardcover as well. So check that out on Instagram. And Hey, awesome. Thank you, Mike. Always good to hang out with you and be a part of what you're doing because it's fantastic. And I hope everybody has a friggin' awesome, kick-ass weekend. And hey, the Yankees. I'm in New York. I live in Florida, but I'm a Yankee fan. And my Yankees won today, beat the Red Sox. So nice. It's a fantastic game. Very excited. The day is going good. I hope your weekend is fantastic. Till next time, be bold, be beautiful, be brilliant, and be extraordinary. And yeah, all that fun shit. Bye bye, people.